Shalom, everyone. Shalom means hi, peace, and also goodbye. So that's like, it means everything in one word. So yeah, as Glenn mentioned, my name is Moti. I'm from Israel. My home base with Chosen People Ministries is in Ramat Gan, which is the suburbs of Tel Aviv. We have a Messianic Center over there where we're hosting Kabbalat Shabbat and young adults evenings and stuff like that for mostly for the center of Israel. And this is how we preach the gospel to Israelis and to the Jewish people who live in Israel today. And I'm going to share with you my story of how I came to faith, I would say in 2009. It's been a long time now. So I was born to an Orthodox family in a small city in the north of Israel, which is called Haifa. Have you been to Israel before? Like, raise your hands if you've been to Israel. Oh, nice, okay. So it's not a small city, it's actually a big city. It's one of the, I would say, the first cities that we have in Israel where you see an Arab community and a Jewish community combined together, live together in a big city. And it's thrilled with life. I mean, we have holidays where we celebrate Ramadan, Hanukkah, and Christmas together during December, which is a mix of great food and great people and a lot of interesting and joy and interesting time. So this is where I grew up, and that was in, I would say I was born in Haifa, and then I grew up in Ma'alot, which is northern than Haifa. It's on the border with Lebanon. And growing up as an Orthodox kid, I did all the traditions that the Jews do, which is going to the synagogue and, of course, celebrate the feasts and wrapping the tefillin when I was 13 and doing all those things that usually we Jewish people do, like living the Jewish life. And then when I turned 16, I went to my dad and I told him that I don't want to be religious anymore. And he looked at me and he got sad because I'm an only child, no sisters, no brothers, and it really hurt him. So he said, well, you passed your bar mitzvah, so now every sin that you do is going to go upon your head. So if you don't want to be religious, if you don't want to be in a synagogue anymore, that's fine. There is this tradition in the synagogue that after a kid becomes 13 and do the bar mitzvah, which is a big event, all the sins, all the things that he do goes towards him. Before he's 13, everything goes to his father. So it's like, when he's 13, he's like, woohoo, I don't need to carry your sins anymore above me. Of course, this is not biblical. They take it from the book of Ezekiel. There's a verse over there, but it's not biblical. It's not really from the Bible. It's from the sages. And anyways, when I was 16 and I told that to my dad, he got really sad. But he said, you know what? You can go and do whatever you want with your life. Now, this is not something you're telling to someone who's 16. Because I started partying, going to doing drugs and alcohol, and I don't know if this is what we call enjoying life, but it was definitely back in that time, it was what I thought was being an enjoying life. When I turned 18, I joined the IDF. It's not because we want to, it's because we have to, and it's a mandatory. I mean, I wanted to join the IDF, and I served in the Air Force for 3 years, and after I finished my service, the second Lebanon war started in Israel. And I remember sitting with my dad on my porch because Lebanon is in the border and the war was with Hezbollah, and I'm sitting on the porch and we can hear the rockets flow above our head, like this, and then you hear the boom. It's a traumatic event. And after the war ended, I decided that I don't want to be in Israel anymore. So I packed my stuff and I moved to the Holy Land, which is, of course, Brooklyn, New York. And And this is, if you've been to New York, you know, Brooklyn is very, very Orthodox. And I worked there as a salesman. I sold the Dead Sea salt in the mall for a long time. And then after a year, I found a job in a pizza shop. And because I knew the traditions and everything, and people really enjoyed me and liked me, so they gave me the position of being a kosher supervisor. So I was the guy who was responsible on the oven and the food and everything that goes inside the restaurant. Now, the owner of the restaurant was not Jewish. She was Korean. Her name is Hannah, and Hannah is also a Jewish name. So she actually, she called the pizza Hannah's Pizza, good for the business. It was kosher, so a lot of Jewish people all over come to this pizza shop. Now, as well as I was also the kosher supervisor, I was also the cashier. So I was the guy who was handling the money and everything. And I remember one day, this woman walks into the restaurant and she's asking me, what is the heat of the ovens? Like, how hot is it? And I'm like, I don't know. It's pizza. I don't know. And then she asked me, what kind of recipe do you use for the pizza? What's the sauce and the cheese, where it comes from? And of course, I knew that she's asking that because she wanted to know the kosher certificate that we have. But these questions made me ask myself, how much do I know the root of my faith, of being Jewish? And then another war broke out, another war, or I don't know, with Gaza. And I had the Israeli channel on the TV, and this guy walked into the restaurant and he looked on the TV, and then he looked at me and he said, Miklachat bevakasha. Now, miklachat in Hebrew means shower. But I understood that he's inside a restaurant and he wants to go to the restroom. So I pointed him to the restroom, and when he got out, I told him, you know, you said miklachat, but I knew that you actually mean restrooms. And he said, yeah, now that makes sense, because when I went to Israel, whenever I wanted to go to the restroom, people gave me a towel. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because, I mean, we are taking showers, but not like that, not that often. Now, I was lonely in New York, and this guy, his name is Rory, he was around his 30s. And we became good friends. I knew that he's a Christian. I never wanted to ask him questions about his faith until one day that we had the chance to walk for something like 50 blocks from my pizza shop to Times Square. We walked together and we were talking. And I told him, you know, I'm never going to believe in Jesus because you guys took the Old Testament and you switched it and you twisted it and you did so many things with it to make it real that Jesus is God. Now, just so you know, Jews don't know that Jesus is the Messiah. I mean, this is something that they don't even know that he is called Messiah. This is a crucial thing for the Israeli community because Jews all over the world today still waiting for Messiah. And he asked me, what are you talking about? And I told him, well, you say that Jesus resurrected from the dead, but we know that there was only one person in the Old Testament that was resurrected from the dead, and his name is Abraham. He never died, he went up to heaven. And he looks at me and he says, are you sure it's Abraham? I'm like, of course I'm sure it's Abraham. I'm like, no, I think you're wrong. I'm like, no. Trust me, I know my Bible, I read it in Hebrew. It's my language, it was Abraham. Out of nowhere, he pulled his Bible from his bag, and he opened, I think it was 1 Kings, with Elijah. Yeah. And it says that Elijah went with a chariot up to heaven. And I was shocked. I'm like, okay, I had no idea. That's because there is a tradition that says that Abraham never died, that he resurrected. But I thought that this is real. So I looked at him and I said, well, your Bible is in English. In my Bible, it was Abraham. He said, well, why won't you go home and search for it? I said, okay. So I got home and I opened my Bible in Hebrew. I had a Bible that it was only the Old Testament. And my dad gave me a Bible when I left, so he gave me that to take it with me. And I wonder, it was Elijah who actually went up to heaven. So I sent him a text message and I said, I'll never become a Christian, but you are right. But he did something that I believe that everyone who sits here can do with Jewish people around them. And that's because most of the Jews don't know the Bible. They don't know the Old Testament. It doesn't matter how dressed they are, what kind of a big hat they have, or a yarmulke on their head, what long is their talit, or how many words they know in Hebrew. They don't know the Old Testament. We found it in Israel that we've sat with a lot of rabbis and spoke with them, and most of them learn the Talmud, which is a completely different book from the Old Testament. It's a book of laws. So I started reading the Bible. This guy, this Gentile Christian, put a lot of zeal in my heart to start reading my Bible. And I started from Genesis. And I started reading and following and see what's going on. And I fell in love with the Bible. Now, because the Hebrew language is very hard, especially in the Old Testament, it's like an old Hebrew. We don't use it in Israel anymore. In Israel, we speak modern Hebrew, not biblical. So I had to sit like a little boy and read word by word to understand what it means. And I was shocked when it says that God spoke to Abraham, God spoke to Moses, God spoke to David, and I'm like, wow. No tefillin, no siddur, no traditions. He just spoke to him. A relationship between man and God. This guy, Rory, invited me to his birthday party. And over there I met a Jewish girl and another guy. And he invited me to his synagogue on Shabbat. And I said, okay, I'll go, why not? Back then I wanted to be a big photographer. And I found myself selling big pizza, but in the same time, I said, why not? It's good to go to Jewish circles and get to know with people and, schmooze around. And I'm going to the synagogue with my friend. I took my friend with me, this girl that I met in the birthday party. And I give her the address, and she says to me, just please be open-minded before you get in. And I'm like, I've been to synagogue so many times in my life. Why do I need to be open-minded? It's not something like, just a synagogue. And she said, that's just be open-minded. I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting in this great hall, this big hall, and I see men and women sit in the same place. Some of them wearing the yarmulke, some of them not. And I see the flags of Israel and the flags of the Lion of Judah. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is the first time I'm going to have a Reformed service. I was sure that I'm in a Reformed synagogue. And then the rabbi or the pastor walks into the stage and he lifts his hands like this and he says, Yeshua, bless us. We want more of you, Yeshua. So I'm sitting next to my friend and I'm like, psst, psst. She's like, what? I'm like, who's Yeshua? Now, I'm going to stop here for a second because this is a crucial thing for us Israelis. In Israel, we don't call Jesus Yeshua. We call him Yeshu. Can you hear the difference? Yeshu and Yeshua? Many years ago, the sages dropped one letter out of his name, which is the last letter, which is also a vowel that makes the sound. So now it says Yeshu. Some of them believe that the name is actually a curse for his name. That means, may his name be blotted out from our memory forever and ever. Now, to be honest, I can't blame them because persecution from the church to the Jewish people happened for many years. And they had no knowledge about him being the Messiah. So when we speak to Israelis on the street and we say Yeshua, the first thing that comes on their mind is Joshua, son of Nun. And then we need to say, no, not Joshua. He's a great guy as well. But we're talking about Yeshua, Jesus. Most of the time, people will pass by and not going to speak to us. And a lot of the times, people will go crazy and maybe punch us or who knows what. And this is exactly what happened to me in that synagogue. When she said Jesus, I think it's a service like this. When she said Jesus, I stood up and I started yelling at her. What are you doing? I'm Jewish. How can I be in a church? You lied to me. And, you know, she's this Ashkenazi white girl, Jewish. She became red as a tomato. And she started melting down in the chair. And she said, please, just chill out. It's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. I'm like, no, why have you brought me here? And the service stopped and everyone looked at me. And I felt embarrassed. But I'm Israeli, so I don't care. Anyways, but I felt embarrassed and I sat down. And then they started worship. So I stood up and I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the words. I lift my hands and it felt like I know what I'm doing. Now for me, it looked natural. Well, for my friend, she literally said, I thought you were going to kill me. And now you completely changed. Good worship changed you right away. And this is what I felt. As soon as the service ended, I got out and I met a guy named Ryan, and he was working with Chosen People Ministries. And I told him, Ryan, you know, I wish that you would have more synagogues like that in Israel, because people would love to go to synagogue. It's live. There are people all over. You can feel something different. And he said, well, you know, we have Messianic congregations in Israel. And I said, well, I never heard of it. That's the first time I hear about Messianic Jews. And he gave me a copy of the New Testament. And I said, okay, I'm going to read it. Why not? So I opened the New Testament and I started reading it. And I'm going, first thing that happened, that I opened the book and it says the Gospel of John. In Hebrew, it's Yochanan. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, this guy is Jewish. He's got a Jewish name. And then I'm reading through it and I'm like, oh, it was in Jerusalem, in Tiberias. This is my country. How is it that I am, as an Israeli, as a Jew, know so little about this person who's called Yeshua? And when I see Yeshua fight with the Pharisees and put them on the spot with God, I was shocked. I remember my dad, as a religious man, going to synagogue every day, 3 times a day, wrapping the tefillin every day, and he's praying for God and to protect us. He's doing what we call in Hebrew halacha. It's the daily life of being Jewish. But when I asked him once, do you believe you'll go to heaven? He says, I have no idea. I don't know. So I said, why do you do those things if you have no credit? You don't know what's going to happen with you. And he says, we're doing it because we're supposed to do it. This is how we need to live our life. And then I see on the other hand, Yeshua fights and protects the poor people. He protects the people who wants to follow him, who wants to follow God without religion, who wants to follow God because they know they're sinners and they need repentance. And I just, at that moment, it came up to me that Yeshua is probably more than just something that I thought in the past. This guy Ryan showed up. He showed up in my home at least once or twice a week, and we used to sit together and read from the Bible. And I remember that one time we read through Isaiah 53, which is a major chapter for us Jews. I'll give you a short, why is it so major? First of all, Isaiah 53, it's clearly that it speaks about Jesus. Every Shabbat in a synagogue, the Jewish people read from the Torah, that's the book of Moses. So they read a few chapters from the Torah, and they read from the Haftarah, which is a few chapters from the prophets. Now, when they get to Isaiah 53, they stop at Isaiah 52, verse 10, and they go to Isaiah 54. So they skipped that chapter. So when I found out that they skipped that chapter, I wanted to know why. So I read through that chapter, and it was clear to me that Yeshua is the one that it's spoken about in this chapter. But the verse that really struck me was verse 8. And he shall be cut off from the land of living. There's supposed to be death. The sages saying that this chapter speaks about Israel. Israel is not dead, it's still alive. It speaks about sin, that this person in Isaiah 53 would bear the sin of the world. Israel is not bearing the sin of the world. As an Israeli, I can tell you that us Israelis are not a perfect land. And I know that for myself. We just need to read the Bible to see that as well. That Israel is not the perfect land. And then we went through Jeremiah 31, speaking about a new covenant with the people of Israel and the people of Judah. And again, I was shocked. This is the first time I saw the words Brit Chadasha, which means new covenant, in my Bible, in the Old Testament. And I again started to go through and just search all over. I came up with this website. It's called iGod. It's an Israeli website. It was a very small website back then. And they share the gospel in Hebrew. And I contact the guy over there and I said, hey, I'm Israeli. I live in New York. I'm really interested in Yeshua. What's going on? And he sent me so many articles. And I started reading and just observing that. And when I speak to my mom and she's back home, I'm always preaching to her about the Bible. I'm talking to her about the Bible. And she's like, who made you a rabbi? Like, what happened? Passover shows up. And my both parents came to Passover to celebrate with me. And my dad and my mom they just showed up. It was a big surprise. They stayed with me for the feast. It was a 7 days feast. And then my dad left and my mom stayed. And I remember this clearly. I'm sitting in front of my mom and she's asking me, what's going on with your life? I want to know. And I said, well, I met those crazy Jews who believe that Jesus is the Messiah. And it's really interesting. And she started to cry. And she started to cry again. She said, you don't know what you're doing to your family. Your father is going to disown you. And I said to her, I didn't say that I believe in Jesus. I just said that I'm investigating. I just want to read. I want to know. Anyways, we got into a fight. And instead of staying for 2 more weeks, she left 2 days after. And she left with not in a good mood, I can say. She just left back to Israel. On the day after, I went to my pizza shop. I took the subway in New York. Have you guys been to New York before? Okay, so if you've been or not, the subway at 8 a.m. in the morning is packed with people, full with people. You're lucky if you find a spot to sit. And it's so quiet. Nobody speaks in the subway, unless they're drunk. But nobody actually speaks in the subway. So it's crowded with people, but it's quiet. And I got a space, and I remember I'm sitting there, and I'm closing my eyes, and I'm saying, God, if you're really there, and if Yeshua is the Messiah, I will follow. I'll do whatever it needs to do. I will do everything. And somehow, I felt like someone gives me a hug. This feeling of someone covers me. And it felt like my dad was there in the subway with me. So I opened my eyes because I thought there's going to be a homeless that's hugging me. But that feeling was so real that I said to myself, okay, there is something else here. I got out of the subway. I went 5 blocks to the pizza shop. And outside of the pizza shop, there used to be a limo driver. They would stand there and wait for a call for someone that they need to pick up. And back then, I had the long hair. It was the opposite from what we have now. That's the age. That's how it works. And the guy at the shop, at the pizza shop, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, finally, Jesus arrived." I'm like, okay, nice. So I got into the restaurant, and in New York, the restaurant is above, and then the kitchen is down in the basement. So I got into the restaurant. It was 8 or 9:30, something like that. I went into the basement, to the kitchen, and got into the refrigerator. Don't ask why. It was a big refrigerator, not a small. And I called a friend of mine that used to work back then with Jews for Jesus. And I told her everything that happened to me. And she started to pray for me. And I started to cry. And I wept so much because I felt so guilt. I felt the entire guilt in my heart of how I kicked my mom. What have I done until now? What's going on with me? I was illegally in the States. That's been my second year that I'm not even with my papers. I don't have papers. And then she said, do you want to accept Jesus into your life? And I said, yes. Where do you sign? And she said, let's pray. Now, after she prayed, and I received Jesus in that refrigerator in Manhattan, I got out of the refrigerator, and I was sure that my life are going to be amazing now. I'm going to get my work permit. I'm going to become an American citizen. I'll have a blonde wife with 2 dogs, live in the suburbs, lives the life in America, enjoy it and everything. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, almost didn't happen. For an entire year, those limo drivers that used to be working outside, Israelis, they used to go in and say mean things to me. You took part in the Nazi regime. You are a friend of Hitler. What you're doing is killing your parents. My mom, for an entire year, when she talked to me on the phone, she used to call in the middle of the night in Israel and to cry on the phone. What have you done? Why are you doing this? But I knew that God is with me, and I used to comfort her all the time. Until one day, my dad picked up the phone on the other side, and he asked me what's going on. And I said, Abba, I believe in Jesus. And he went crazy. It was between yelling and crying. He said, I have only one child, and now I have no kids at all. He wanted to announce Kaddish over me in a synagogue. Kaddish is a prayer that usually the Jews say if someone is dead. It's very similar to the Lord's Prayer when we think of it, but that's a different story. And for an entire year, my father hadn't spoken to me. He was not there. My mom, I was sure that she's going through a long and very harsh time. I was there to comfort her as much as I could. And after a year, I read from Proverbs chapter 2, speaking about wisdom in the land. And it was clear for me that this is my time to go back to Israel. I'm still not married. I don't have a blonde wife. I don't have 2 kids or dogs. I don't live in the suburbs. I'm still in the same situation. I'm still stuck with this pizza shop. I need to go back home. As soon as I landed in Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, my father and my mom were there, and my father gave me a hug. And that felt the same hug that it felt to me in the subway a year ago. And he said to me, I accept you as you are, but please don't share your faith with anyone. When God opens a circle, He's making sure to close that circle. It can take a year, it can take an hour, it can take even 20 years. We just need to be very careful and look at that, and then you know that God is there. For the first year, I studied in Israel College of the Bible, and also started working with them. We've created videos about answering Jewish objections to Jesus. We've made more than 150 videos that went viral in Israel. More than 16 million views. It was translated to so many languages. And I can say that I didn't really listen to what my father said. But it was worth it. Because a year passed by, and my dad sits in a synagogue, and one of his friends in a synagogue shows him a video of me debunking the oral law. And instead of saying to him, your son is a Gentile, he's a Christian, he's not Jewish, he said to him, your son is very wise. You need to talk to him. And since then, me and my dad become very close. It was something that that I never imagined that's going to happen. We read together Isaiah 53. In the middle of the chapter, he's looking at me and he says, it sounds like your guy. I'm like, yes, I know. I was like, what? And he's like, oh, no. But you're saying that, not me. You said that. I'm like, oh. So God is working in his heart until today. 2017, I got married to a beautiful blonde girl. And we don't have dogs, we have 2 cats. And she's not Jewish. She's Russian, and she found out that she's not Jewish when we got married. She was sure she was Jewish because she was born in Israel, but according to the oral law, if your mom is not Jewish, then you're not Jewish. And that was also very devastating for my parents, that I'm gonna get married with no Jew, and that my son is not, and my kids are not gonna be Jewish, and it's such an important thing in the Jewish community. And today I work with Chosen People Ministries, and I want to share with you a few things about my ministry, about my personal ministry. I do something that we don't see a lot in Israel. We don't see it. I don't know if we see a lot in the world. My personal ministry, I call it like an undercover ministry, is playing video games. I have my own channels on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that, and I'm playing video games. And whenever there is a chance that people start talking about Jesus, I can share my faith with everyone there. During 2021, when Corona was all over, when COVID was all over, this guy who's got something like a quarter of a million followers on the media, on YouTube, sent me a message on my WhatsApp, and he said, "What's the thing with Jesus? What's going on? What is it?" And I shared with him, I believe that Jesus died for my sin, and only through him I have a relationship with God. And then he said, I'm not Jewish. My mom is not Jewish, but my dad is. And I said, well, same as my wife. And he said that this is the reason why he was against the rabbinical Judaism, because when he wanted to celebrate bar mitzvah, the rabbi told him he needs to convert in order to celebrate. And he was so mad at it. 2 months later, he came to faith. And not only that he came to faith, COVID, when Corona was all over, being a streamer was like a big thing because everyone were at home. So he was streaming a video game, and he has something like 2,000 viewers, and he speaks about Jesus, just like that. And I was shocked. I said, look how God opened the door to reach to a young Israelis that a lot of the people, a lot of the ministries can't reach. And then October 7th showed up. My wife was pregnant, and she was ready to give birth. And on October 10th, she gave birth to a beautiful boy. And because it was in the middle of a war, the beginning of the war, on October 10th, Israel just found out the horrors that happened in the kibbutzim in South Israel. And we wanted to name this kid with the name Roni, which means joy. And then because the war has struck, we gave him the name Tzuriel, which means God is my rock. I've never seen a hospital so quiet like it was on October 10th, the day that my baby boy was born. Everyone went into a trauma. It was a shock for everyone in Israel. A year passed by, and as I was a new believer, I was ministry. I did ministry for youth. I was a youth leader, and I had to be in 3 funerals for 3 of my youth kids that died during the war. A few weeks after, I found out that I had 2 friends from school who were murdered during the festival in the South. I didn't know about that. Facebook just showed it. It turns into a memorial page instead of being a live page. The war that there is in Israel right now, it's devastating. It's been there for so long. I can tell you, trust me, all of us want to stop this war and just go back to our regular life. We feel like wherever we go, we are marked. If it's in Europe, if it's in the US, if it's in England, wherever we are. We feel alone. Although Israel has shown some significant, I would say, army or operations they've done during this war, still today, we don't see a banner that lifts up above Israel and says, Kol hakavod le'Elohim, well done, God. Most of the people in Israel today will say, Kol hakavod le'Tzahal, well done, IDF. And this is where it's, you know, I'm an Israeli. I served in the IDF. I know that we have a great army. I know that. But the respect needs to go to him, not to us, not to the army. Because everything is under his regime. Even October 7th happened under his regime. So this is where I started trying to find out my ministry and how do I reach other people. And then something like 6 months ago, this guy shows up and he sent me a message on Instagram. Do you know Andrew Tate? Yes, so, So he's Andrew Tate is like a pro-masculine, going against women. He's like a very sitting whenever he used to film himself, he was with his shades on, and so this guy was the Israeli Andrew Tate. I mean, he was exactly like him. His entire videos were just like that, speaking about women and money and fame. I mean, he also looked like a muscular man. He's got like, I mean, his hand is in the size of my belly. All of this, like he's going to the gym, let's say like that. And he's got tattoos all over, and he's this cool guy. And then he sends me a message, hey, I saw your testimony online. And it's interesting what you're saying. And I'm like, yeah. And then he started opening his heart, and he said that, well, first of all, he's not Jewish. He's from South Lebanon, and he lives in Israel. His family moved to Israel after the first Lebanon war. And he's not Jewish. He grew up as a Catholic. And he came to faith, and his life changed completely. Instead of being a man that speaks about women and money and fame and all of that, he's speaking about Jesus. I'm looking at his story on Instagram, and he's just sharing his faith. He's got 500,000 followers, Jewish people, and all of them listen to what he says. This is a generation of influence. I believe that today everyone can be an influencer online and reach people. You just need to be very creative. I want to share with you a verse that proved to us how much we need to be there on the media. Just because what I'm doing. I'm going to read from Revelation chapter 11. And of course, I'm not a prophet. I never investigate the book too much. So I know this part very good because I was talking about that. But in Revelation 11, it speaks about the two elders who's going to do their testimony all over Jerusalem. Some say that it might be Elijah and Moses. We don't really know. But there is something very interesting on verse 9. Because they will be there for 3 days, and they will preach the gospel inside Jerusalem. And then on verse 9, it says, for 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, that is after, let's go to verse 8. Their bodies, after they will die, their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively, called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified, Jerusalem. For 3.5 days, some from every people, tribe, language, and nation will glaze on their bodies and refuse them burial. This was written by John in a cave somewhere in the Middle East while he was running away or hiding, and Jesus appeared to him and gave him this testimony. And I'm interested to know, how will people glaze at their body for 3.5 days? How will they see him? They see their bodies. Well, today we have YouTube, we have Twitch. I can open my phone. I just spoke to my wife yesterday, and I'm in England, and I showed her a part of England. I believe that the media today, is going to be a part of this. I don't know when, but I believe that every eye will see their bodies through their screens. Maybe it's going to be this, maybe it's going to be something else, but who knows? So we have a lot of ways to influence the Jewish people in Israel, and of course people outside of Israel. When you came in, I put this on your chairs. And this is for you if you want to stay in touch with me and receive my prayer letter that I'm trying to send every month, but I'm forgetting a little bit. But anyways, I can make assure for you that you will receive my prayer letter and my updates. In the same time, Chosen People Ministries have been around for almost 120 years. We are wherever there is a Jewish community, we're going to be there because we want to show the gospel to Israelis and to Jewish people. We have volunteers that, of course, are not Jewish and volunteers that are Jewish. We have missionaries all over the world, and we have open programs for each one to join ministry to the Jewish people. There is something very important about sharing the gospel with Jewish people. It feels like Jesus came to this place and gave his life for us. And when he left, he gave us one thing, and that's the verses that you just read from Ephesians. He broke this veil and united us together. So I'm very thrilled to be here in England. I'm very thrilled to be here with you for the first time of my tour. Thank you, Glenn, for inviting. And I am sure that with your support and prayers towards Israel, we can bring peace to the Middle East, not by power, not by force, but with the Prince of Peace, with Yeshua. And we are praying for this war to be over. We are praying for the captivity in Gaza to be released. And in the same time, as much as it's hard for me to say that as an Israeli, we also want to pray for Gaza. We also want to put them on a beacon. They are people. God created them in his own figure, in his own image. So we are praying for the Middle East to be saved. We're praying for Israel and for the peace of Jerusalem. And we are waiting for the day that the Jewish community will say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, blessed art thou in the name of the Lord, when Jesus is going to come back. Thank you very much. I want to pray for you all. And Abba Avinu, Eloheinu, thank you for this time and for this day, for this community, for the church that you've been built here, and for the roots that are starting to go through under our grounds. Father, I'm praying that you will bring revelation to this church for the people here to go outside on the streets and share the gospel, share the living God, share the life of Messiah, Father. What a great opportunity to be a vessel, to take the gospel to the people around, to our neighbors, family, and of course, friends. Father, bring back the gospel to England. We're waiting with our arms open for your coming back, Father. And we're praying in the name of your precious Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. Amen. Amen. תודה רבה.